Rutgers men's basketball landing four-star forward Chris Nwuli on Sunday, adding to its 2025 recruiting class, now 4 prospects deep. Nwuli, the highest rated of all the current commitments, currently 105th nationally in the 24/7 composite ranking, number 23rd power forward. He is considered a California recruit, even though he's from Vegas. He plays for Sierra Canyon High School. And Nwuli is a versatile player, fits the Steve Pikiell mold, defensive-minded, can guard multiple positions, has a high motor, super athletic, plays really hard. This is another player that played for a high-profile EYBL team. He is a teammate of current commitment Lino Mark, the point guard who committed to Rutgers recently, played together for the Oakland Soldiers, who made it all the way to the title game of the EYBL Peach Jam Classic in July, the most high-profile AAU tournament there is. And he really stood out in that competition. He averaged 12.5 points, 4.4 rebounds, 1.6 assists. But where really is encouraging, he shot over 50%, 50.7 from the field, 8 of 17 from 3, 24 of 30 from the foul line, and plays for a team that has the number 1 recruit in the 25 and 26 class, AJ Dabasanta for the 25 and Tyron Stokes for the 26 class. Him and Mark being key pieces to that team and making that championship run. So I talked about it with Mark. I love guys that play in high-profile situations that have been tested at the high school level and in the AAU level. And Nwuli certainly fits that bill. And Rutgers, listen, getting guys that play for high-profile teams in the EYBL, that is a change. And while these aren't top 25 recruits, and we maybe got a little spoiled with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, this is a different level of recruit than was the stand. Some people might interpret it from the outside that recruiting's taken a step back. It hasn't taken a step back. It's evolving. And I think what's interesting about this class is just in terms of the overall approach, which I'll get to, but just in terms of talking about Nwuli, 24/7 sports director of scouting, Adam Finkelstein, is quoted as saying, quote, Chris Nwuli is a high-level athlete. That term gets thrown around a lot, but in Nwuli's case, it's very literal. He plays high above the rim, covers the court, can slide laterally, and has very good functional strength. While his skill set remains a work in progress, he's very dangerous in transition and capable of making the type of explosive finishes that can immediately change the momentum of a game. He's also very competitive, potentially a standout defender with the tools to be versatile, guarding multiple positions. If he can keep developing his shooting to the point that he can make open rhythm threes, he'll have a translatable role for years to come. So he's a super athlete, defensive first, that is evolving as a shooter. And like I said, in a high-profile tournament, he did step up and he was a good shooter. So this is very encouraging from a growth standpoint. And I think what it shows is that Rutgers, Steve Pikiell's not hiding behind the fact that they're going to have to make this work in the portal era, in the NIL era. Rutgers is behind in the NIL. And what you're seeing is a continued emphasis on growing the high school classes, right? So you have an interesting dynamic now. So in terms of this class, from a 24/7 composite ranking perspective, which is all the sites mixed together, Rutgers has 4 recruits now ranked between 105th and 179th. Nwuli and Mark are 4 stars. Javante Ware, the big man from Charlotte, North Carolina, he's a high 3. And Caden Powers, recent commit shooting guard from Seattle, he's a 3-star as well, all with grades of 90 or above. And this is Steve Pikiell committing to the fact that while you still have to survive in the portal era, he is building a strong nucleus of developmental talent that have high ceilings, right? And to bring in a mix, you have a forward, a point guard, a big man, and a shooting guard. So he's covering all bases here. They've been in a lot of top recruits for 25. They haven't struck gold in terms of that. Obviously, there's a lot of factors there. But in terms of what they have right now before the season, and would assume that all 4 of these guys are in line to sign before during the early signing period in November, Rutgers is in pretty good shape. Now, this obviously indicates they're still going to have to be successful in the portal in the offseason to build for that 25-26 roster. Right now, if you have these 4 commits, I think Nwuli's the closest to contributing right away. because of his ability to defend, his athleticism, his size, and his pedigree, just in terms of his experience. But in terms of the rest of the dynamic of the roster, it's wide open from a year-to-year standpoint. Steve Pikiell emphasizes every year is different. Obviously, Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper are going to be in the NBA draft after this season, but you have Lathan Somerville, Bryce Dortch, and Dylan Grant, 3 key pieces for the future. Retaining them along with these 4 potentially incoming freshmen, that's 7 deep right there. That's a young core that you can really build from. And it's a talented, diverse, in terms of versatile skill sets, athletic, size, real length on the perimeter, multiple positional flexibility there, and a team that could play fast-paced. So it's fitting the style that Rutgers is wanting to play this season, but you're bringing a lot of high-end talent that you can develop over time. So Steve Pikiell is not walking away from that kind of bread and butter of what has helped this program get to where it's been. And then, you have Jordan Durkak, who has a year of eligibility remaining, obviously, as well. JaMychal Davis. But you're going to have to add to that with the portal. Now, rosters are likely to expand if this NCAA hearing gets finally approved. Roster limits will go from 13 scholarship players to 15. I wouldn't expect Steve Pikiell to fill out a whole 15, but taking a big high school class, right, I think it does make sense as you continue that pipeline, right? And you're going to have attrition as you go, but you're going to have to kind of mix and match. And they're going to have to find some impact players from the portal for the following season. But you do have, this is a step up from where recruiting was prior to this previous year when Rutgers finished top 3 with the obvious additions of the number 2 and number 3 recruits in the 24 class in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. This is a natural kind of transition point where it's a natural step back from a ranking standpoint. Right now, this class is ranked really high. It's number 6 overall. It's super early in the class. This is probably looking at like a top 40 class, which is very respectable. And it's definitely progress for this program as a whole. If you look at some of the most successful Big Ten teams, Iowa, Wisconsin, they don't recruit nearly at that high of a level on a consistent basis. So this was a necessary step for Rutgers. They still add to this 25 class. It all depends on how the season goes. They could land a top prospect still. We'll see what happens. But it's, you're showing Steve Pikiell is not going all in on the portal. He never will, right? But he's also showing, I think, a focus with the way his staff is working. Smoke Williamson is the lead recruiter for all 4 of these recruits. He seems to be focusing on all the high school recruits. And you have to imagine that Brandon Knight and TJ Thompson are focusing on kind of landing impact players down the road, focusing on the current team, and then in terms of player development, and then also will kind of take the lead in terms of finding portal guys to add to next season. So there's a clear plan in place. There's a clear strategy in place. You're seeing it take fold. And for those that, were panicking maybe 2 months ago that Rutgers didn't have any commits and they were missing on everybody. This is a solid core that they're bringing in to add to another solid core that is expected to return in Grant, Dortch, and Somerville. So you have a ton of length here. You have a ton of athleticism. This team's going to continue to look to be an up-tempo team. This is a transition in style. I don't think you're going to see Steve Pikiell, if by necessity, go back to that, grind it out 55, 60-point style. He's getting superior athletes that can play multiple positions, that have diverse skill sets. From Matt Zagoria, quoted, this is Zag's report. This is Sam Lance with a quote from Nwuli on Rutgers. Quote, most importantly, I love Steve Pikiell's energy on why he chose Rutgers. Quote, he was really energetic towards me. He was really outgoing and kept it real with me. I know I can trust what he says. Coach Smoke Williamson, I really appreciate him for reaching out and communicating with me to try it and get me over there. It was a whole process with it, being new to the East Coast and stuff like that. So I really appreciate them giving me the opportunity to play. So he was a guy that Rutgers got involved with late. They obviously saw him throughout the spring and summer. Pikiell was at several games on the EYBL circuit, both in May and then obviously at the Peach Jam. And they obviously got Lino Mark, and then now landing his teammate, Chris Nwuli. So credit to Lino Mark, who has been pretty open about landing him as well, or recruiting him. But in terms of Nwuli, he had pretty much a whole West Coast list. I mean, Ohio State was involved, but Arizona State, San Diego State, UCLA, USC, Louisville was involved as well. So he has a legit national offer list that Rutgers was able to win out in the end. So to get in late, Nwuli has talked about wanting to play in the East Coast. I think people maybe assumed he didn't want to. And then obviously having his teammate Lino Mark, that just kind of makes that bond even stronger. And again, love guys that played high-profile teams on the EYBL circuit, play with, two high-profile recruits, played in pressure situations. You need guys. I think it's not just about skill set. It's not just about background. It's not just, in terms of how quickly can they work, but the fact that you have two players now coming into this class that are used to high pressure situations. I think that that's really key now, especially when you're going to need freshmen to contribute right away in certain spots. And I think both of them are in line to do that. And then in addition, you have Caden Powers, who's a lot of potential as a shooting guard, has real size. And then you have the big man, Javante Ware, who Jay Young will go to work with. So overall, the 25 class shaping up pretty strong for Rutgers right now, ranked 6th. I always say this with football too. It's very early in the cycle. You're not going to finish top 20 based on the way the class is right now, but it's still a very solid class. When you have 4 recruits from 105th to 180th, if you look back on previous recruiting class, I mean, Rutgers is not recruited at that level aside from last year when they landed the top 2 of the top 3 guys. So this is still a overall step forward from a recruiting standpoint. If they can sustain this level and even improve a little bit, this is a real positive for the program. Obviously, NIL needs to improve everywhere. The revenue sharing could really be a boon for Rutgers as well in terms of how the athletic department divvies up the revenue sharing. That's going to be key. But, again, Rutgers involved in the Players Era Festival, a 3-year commitment, NIL payouts. Steve Pikiell has been very thorough in exploring as many NIL opportunities for his players as possible. And I think you're seeing a response there. And again, every recruit that commits to Pikiell says that they believe him, they trust him to his word. And that goes a long way in this day and age of portal and NIL world. Steve Pikiell tells it like it is. And obviously to have 2 of the top 3 recruits trusting him with their careers right now, if Rutgers can have big results this season, it's only going to boost 2026 and beyond. Who knows? Maybe they sneak in with someone else in 25. But building large classes to then be able to kind of fit pieces in from the portal rather than just relying on the portal is how Rutgers has to do it. That's how they have to be sustainable in terms of their success. They don't have an endless budget to go into the portal like Rick Pitino is saying he's going to do and not even take a high school recruit in this class. That's just crazy. He's going all portal. He's got vitamin water money. Steve Pikiell is kind of melding the best of both worlds. And let's just be honest. I mean, his go-to, his bread and butter, his identity is taking high school players and developing them. But the key point here is that he's landing higher recruited, higher ranked, more talented, more athletic players than he ever did in the past. And while they might not be a top 3 class, this is still a step up. And to couple that with the players you expect back from the 24 class, it's an exciting future for this program. Can't wait to get the 24-25 season going. But this is a great step. Chris Nwuli, a big addition, consensus 4-star. He was ranked top 50 in ESPN. He was ranked top 50 by some other outlets before. And I think, his ceiling is going to be dictated by his ability to be able to score from the perimeter. If he can continue to develop there, this is a legit Big Ten starter down the road and a big addition for Rutgers basketball. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful Podcast.